The Galactic Cadet Academy floated in orbit above the twin suns of Vega Prime, shining like two burning eyes in the endless dark. It was the most respected military academy in the galaxy, where young warriors from dozens of alien worlds came to train, learn strategy, and earn glory. Every cadet dreamed of becoming a defender of peace, or at least a name known among the stars. On this particular morning, the academy was buzzing with excitement. A new lesson had been announced, something different, something never seen before. The rumor spread through the metal halls like electricity. The cadets whispered to one another as they marched toward the grand hall. "They say it's about the humans," one alien muttered, his scaled face full of curiosity. Those ancient creatures from the Sol system, humans. The word carried weight. It was said that centuries ago, before joining the galactic community, humans had fought wars that shook their own planet to the core. Some believed the stories were exaggerated, that no species could have survived such chaos. Others believed humans were half myth, too violent to be real. The doors of the grand hall slid open with a hiss. Thousands of young cadets stepped inside. At the front stood Commander Zethar, a tall reptilian alien with scarred green armor and piercing amber eyes. His voice filled the hall as soon as he spoke. "Cadets," he said firmly, "today you will learn about a species that history itself tried to forget. They are from a small blue planet called Earth." A low murmur spread through the room. The cadets exchanged puzzled looks. Zethar continued, "You have studied hundreds of civilizations, their wars, their diplomacy, their evolution, but none of them compare to humanity. What you will see today may change the way you see war forever." The lights dimmed. A huge hollow screen came to life behind the commander. The room fell into silence. At first only static appeared, and then slowly the image cleared. A battlefield filled the screen. Smoke rose into the air. Explosions flashed like thunder among dark clouds. In the mud and fire, humans fought. They wore simple armor, not the kind of high-tech suits the cadets were used to. Their weapons were small and primitive by galactic standards, yet the way they fought made the room grow cold. The first clip showed a group of human soldiers defending a ruined city. Their faces were dirty, their hands shaking, but not with fear. With determination, one human shouted orders while another ran to pull an injured comrade to safety, bullets flying past his head. The cadets stared, frozen. They were used to seeing war simulations and clean, strategic, organized. But this was chaos. No shield domes, no energy fields, no retreat. Only courage and madness mixed together. A small insectoid cadet whispered, "They fight." "Without protection?" Another answered, "That's suicide." Commander Zethar's voice echoed from the shadows. "No, that's humanity." The video changed again. Another war, another era. Tanks roared across burning deserts. Ships exploded in space. Human pilots screamed through comms as their vessels went down, but they didn't beg for rescue. They fought until the very last second. The hall grew darker. Some cadets looked away. Others leaned closer, unable to turn their eyes from the screen. The more they watched, the heavier the silence became. Then came the scene that made the entire hall gasp. A human soldier, badly wounded, stood on a destroyed bridge holding a flag. His uniform was torn, blood covering his arm, yet he raised the flag higher as enemy forces approached. He screamed something, a war cry that shook even through the old recording. A lizard-like cadet's voice cracked. "He knows he's going to die. Why doesn't he surrender?" Commander Zethar folded his arms. "Because humans don't surrender, not until the last one falls." The screen flashed to another battle. Snow, fire, humans crawling through ice, dragging each other to safety. A woman soldier carried a wounded man across a frozen river. Her breath steamed in the cold air. She collapsed, but still pushed him onto the shore before losing consciousness. One cadet stood up suddenly, his breathing heavy. "This is insane," he said. "They are insane!" He turned and left the hall, his metallic boots echoing against the floor. Zethar watched him leave but didn't stop the footage. "Let him go," he murmured. "Some truths are too much for the young." The rest continued to watch in silence. The room filled with explosions, screams, and firelight reflecting off terrified eyes, not of victims but of warriors who refused to die quietly. When the screen finally went black, the lights returned. The cadets sat motionless. No one clapped. No one spoke. Only the soft hum of the ship filled the air. Zethar looked at them slowly. "You have just seen fragments of Earth's history," he said. "Not fiction, not simulations. Real wars, real pain, real courage." A trembling cadet asked, "Commander, how did they survive this?" Zethar's answer was quiet. "They didn't, not all of them. But those who did became something stronger." The class ended, but none of the cadets left right away. They stayed seated, staring at the dark screen that had just shown them a kind of war no alien mind could fully understand. Lyrek, a young blue-skinned cadet, whispered to his friend. "They looked broken, but they never stopped." His friend didn't reply. He couldn't find the words. Outside, as the suns of Vega Prime sank beneath the horizon, Commander Zethar stood by the observation window. His reflection stared back, tired, scarred, and thoughtful. He had fought in wars before, seen thousands die, yet even he had never witnessed what those ancient humans had done to survive. He muttered to himself. Maybe the galaxy was right to fear them. Behind him, the cadets began to leave one by one, whispering in hushed tones. For the first time, the mighty warriors of the Galactic Academy felt something new. Not pride, not excitement, but quiet, cold fear. And somewhere far away on a small blue planet called Earth, humanity lived on, unaware that their old wars were still teaching lessons to the stars. The next morning, the Galactic Cadet Academy felt strangely quiet. The laughter that once filled the dining halls was gone. No one joked about training scores or combat drills. The only sound was the soft hum of the engines and the metallic echo of boots in the corridors. The human footage had changed something in everyone. Lyrek, the blue-skinned cadet, sat in the corner of the mess hall, staring at his untouched food. His hands trembled slightly. He had dreamed of the footage all night, of humans running through fire, screaming, bleeding, refusing to fall. He had seen fear before in his people's history, but never courage like that. It didn't make sense. How could something so fragile be so unstoppable? His roommate, Jaro, a tall, red-scaled alien with golden eyes, sat across from him. "You didn't sleep," he said softly. Lyrek shook his head. "I can't stop seeing them. The way they fought. The way they screamed," Jaro frowned. "They were primitive. That's all. They don't fight like us. No strategy, no control, just chaos." Lyrek looked up. "Then why couldn't I look away?" Jaro had no answer. He pushed his tray aside and stood up. "Commander Zethar said we're watching another session today. I might skip it." "You can't," Lyrek whispered. "It's mandatory." Jaro muttered something under his breath and walked away. Around the hall, other cadets sat in silence. Some stared at the floor. Some avoided eye contact. The bravest tried to laugh, but their voices cracked before they could. It was as if the whole academy was holding its breath. Later, in the training yard, the instructors noticed the difference. Combat practice was slower, mistakes more frequent. Aerial drills failed, formations broke apart. Even the Academy's AI monitors noted an unusual drop in morale. When Commander Zethar reviewed the report, he frowned. "So," he murmured, "fear finally blooms." He called for a private meeting with the senior instructors. Inside the steel-walled room, holograms of each teacher flickered around the table, different species all wearing grim expressions. "They are shaken," said a feline officer. The footage damaged their confidence. Zethar crossed his arms. "Good, let them feel fear. Real soldiers must understand it before they can overcome it." "But this is more than fear," another instructor said. "Some cadets are considering resignation." Zethar's tail flicked against the floor. "Then they are not ready for war." When the meeting ended, Zethar stood by the window, watching the stars drift past. He remembered his first encounter with humans decades ago during a peace summit. They had come unarmed, smiling, polite. But when he looked into their eyes, he saw something ancient, something that could not be taught. A fire that refused to die. That evening, the second viewing session was announced. The hall filled again, but the energy was different. The cadets walked in slower, quieter, like prisoners returning to a cell. Lyrek took his seat near the front. Jaro sat 2 rows behind him, arms crossed. Zethar appeared once more, his eyes scanning the uneasy faces. "You all saw the surface yesterday," he said. "Now you will see the depth." The lights dimmed. The hollow screen flickered. The new footage began. It wasn't about modern wars this time. It was older, more brutal. Grainy black and white images showed men in muddy trenches soaked in rain, their faces covered in dirt. Explosions thundered above them, shaking the ground. They screamed, but they didn't run. They held the line. One clip showed a man dragging his wounded friend across the battlefield while bullets tore through the mud around them. He was hit once, twice, but he didn't stop. He pulled the other man behind cover before collapsing. The screen froze on his lifeless hand still gripping his comrade's jacket. A small alien voice whispered from the crowd. Why would he do that? He was already dying. Zethar replied from the dark. Because he chose someone else's life over his own. The footage continued. Tanks rolled through smoke. Planes crashed into burning fields. Soldiers charged through flames with nothing but bayonets and shouts. It wasn't just war. It was willpower made visible. Halfway through the viewing, a cadet fainted. 2 others stood and hurried out, their faces pale and shaking. Zethar didn't stop the video. He let it play. At the end, the screen showed a single image. A graveyard stretching to the horizon. Thousands of crosses lined beneath gray skies. A narrator's voice, human, spoke softly. We fought. We died, we rebuilt. That's what humans do. The lights returned. Silence. Total silence. One by one, cadets stood up and left. Some walked quickly, others slowly. A few had tears in their eyes. Jaro didn't move at all. He just stared ahead, jaw tight, hands clenched. Lyrek turned toward Commander Zethar. Why did you show us this? He asked quietly. Zethar looked at him for a long time before answering. Because, Cadet, courage is not born in comfort. Humanity's greatest weapon is not their technology. It is their will, and that terrifies the galaxy. Lyrek nodded slowly, but his heart was heavy. That night he couldn't sleep again. The images replayed in his mind. The screaming, the dying, the man lifting the flag even as bullets tore him apart. He tried to convince himself it was madness, nothing more. But deep down he knew it wasn't madness at all. It was something stronger. Something his kind had never known. Meanwhile, in the command office, Zethar wrote a report for the Galactic High Command. He summarized the results of the experiment. Out of 300 cadets, 47 experienced panic responses. 11 requested early withdrawal. Fear levels remain high. Psychological instability confirmed. He paused before typing the last line. Conclusion. Humanity's endurance is not tactical. It is instinct. They do not fear death the way others do. He closed the file and leaned back, exhaling slowly. Outside the window, Vega Prime's twin suns began to rise again, painting the Academy's hull in gold and crimson light. Down in the dormitory, Lyrek sat by the window of his small cabin, watching the same sunrise. He thought about humans, about their eyes, their voices, their fire. He whispered to himself, they're not monsters. They're something else. The Academy around him remained silent, as if holding its breath. The fear had not left. It had grown roots, deep inside every cadet's heart, changing them in ways they didn't yet understand. And somewhere far away on the blue planet called Earth, humanity continued living, unaware that their ancient wars still echoed across the stars, teaching those who dared to watch. 2 days passed, but the fear never left the Academy. The once busy training grounds now felt hollow. The cadets moved slower, their drills lacked rhythm, and even the sound of engines seemed quieter. Nobody wanted to admit it, but the footage had done something to their minds. It had shown them a side of war they had never imagined, a side that no simulation or lesson could prepare them for. Lyrek sat alone in the observation deck, staring at the stars. He should have been studying flight tactics, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw human faces. Faces covered in mud, sweat, and blood, yet still full of life. He tried to forget, but the memories clung to him like shadows. He could hear their war cries, their shouts of pain, their stubborn refusal to fall. He whispered softly, "How can something so broken keep standing?" Commander Zethar stood behind him, silent for a moment. "You're still thinking about them," he said quietly. Lyrek didn't turn. "Yes, sir," he replied. "I can't stop." Zethar stepped beside him, his long claws tapping against the glass. "Good," he said. "You shouldn't stop. Fear is the beginning of wisdom." Lyrek looked confused. "Wisdom?" The commander nodded. "Only fools think war is glorious." The humans learned long ago. War is not about winning. It's about surviving. He turned and walked away, leaving Lyarek with 1,000 questions that had no easy answers. That evening, another announcement echoed through the academy halls. All cadets report to the Grand Hall. The second human archive will be displayed at dusk. The message spread quickly. Some cadets protested. Others wanted to refuse, but no one could disobey a direct command. Slowly, unwillingly, they gathered once again. The atmosphere was heavier than before, like walking into a storm they could not avoid. The lights dimmed. The hollow screen flickered to life. At first there was silence. Then black and white images filled the screen. The air seemed to thicken as the first explosions thundered through the speakers. This footage was older, more raw. Humans wearing torn uniforms crawled through the mud. They didn't have plasma rifles or armor suits, just small guns, bayonets, and willpower. The scene showed a battlefield covered in rain. Men ran through smoke, shouting orders. Some fell and didn't rise again. Others dragged their wounded friends across the ground, refusing to leave them. A nervous whisper came from one of the alien cadets. "They look like animals." Zethar's voice echoed softly from the shadows. "Animals don't fight for each other like that." The footage shifted. Trenches filled with water, broken helmets, bodies lying side by side. A group of human soldiers sat around a fire, singing softly while shells exploded in the distance. Their faces were tired, but they smiled anyway. Lyarek leaned forward. He couldn't understand them, but their song carried emotion, sorrow and strength together. His chest tightened. It felt human. Then the image changed again. Now it showed a young soldier crawling across no man's land, bullets flying past him. He reached a fallen comrade, pulled him close, and began to drag him back. He was hit once, twice, but he kept moving until the wounded man was safe. Then he stopped. His hand stayed on his friend's shoulder, still and lifeless. Gasps filled the hall. One of the smaller alien cadets began to cry quietly. Another stood up, shaking his head. "This isn't training," he said angrily. "This is horror." Zethar didn't react. "This is history," he said calmly. "And history does not care how we feel." The footage continued. Cities burning, soldiers marching through ruins, a nurse holding a dying man's hand, a child giving water to a wounded enemy. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Humans destroyed everything, yet somehow they rebuilt it again. When the final clip ended, the lights came back on. Nobody moved. The silence was like a vacuum. Then Zethar spoke. "Out of all species in the galaxy, humans have suffered the most by their own hands. Yet they endure. They fight, they grieve, and they rise again. That is why they are dangerous." He paused, looking across the crowd. "And that is why they must never be underestimated." A tall alien stood. His skin shimmered like glass, his voice trembling. "Commander, are you saying we could never defeat them?" Zethar looked at him sharply. "Defeat them, perhaps, but not break them. Even if you destroyed their world, their memory would still fight you." The cadets murmured in shock. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others lowered their eyes, realizing the truth they didn't want to face. After the session, several cadets approached Zethar privately. Some asked to be transferred. Others wanted to resign completely. They claimed the material was too disturbing, too human. Zethar approved every request without protest. He had expected it. That night, Lyarek couldn't sleep. The images haunted him again, but this time there was something different. The fear had changed into curiosity. He wanted to understand how such creatures could live through endless pain and still care for each other. He opened his digital pad and began searching the archive for more information on humanity. He read old quotes from human leaders, soldiers, and poets. One line made him stop and read again. "We fight not because we hate what's in front of us, but because we love what's behind us." Lyarek stared at the words for a long time. He whispered, "Love. That's their secret." Outside, the academy floated silently among the stars. A few cadets whispered in their rooms, talking about resigning before the next viewing. Some cried quietly in the dark, but a few, like Lyarek, stayed awake, replaying the footage again and again, searching for meaning in the madness. Commander Zethar sat alone in his office, reviewing reports. 17 resignations, the AI assistant announced. More expected by dawn. He nodded slowly. "Let them go. Those who stay will never see war the same way again." He turned off the lights and looked out at the glowing stars. "Humans," he muttered. You broke them without ever firing a shot. Far across the galaxy on a quiet blue planet called Earth, city lights shimmered beneath clouds. Children played, families laughed, and the world turned peacefully, unaware that somewhere in the cold void of space, alien cadets trembled just from watching their history. And deep within the academy, Lyric whispered into the dark, maybe. Fear is not the only thing they gave us, maybe. They gave us something to believe in. The announcement came early in the morning, echoing through every corridor of the Galactic Cadet Academy. Attention all personnel. A diplomatic envoy from the Sol system will arrive within the hour. All cadets report to the Grand Hall. The moment the words Sol system were spoken, silence fell across the academy. Everyone knew what it meant. The humans, the very species whose terrifying war footage had shaken them to their cores, were coming. Lyric felt his heart race as he stood among hundreds of cadets. The air was thick with unease. Nobody knew what to expect. Some whispered nervously, others stared straight ahead, pretending not to care, but everyone's hands trembled. Commander Zethar entered the hall, his expression unreadable. He scanned the crowd before speaking. Today you meet one of them. Not a recording. Not a legend. A living human. Gasps and murmurs spread through the ranks. Zethar continued. You have seen their wars. You have witnessed their madness and their courage. Now you will see the face behind it. Moments later, the massive metal doors of the Grand Hall opened. A single figure walked in. He was tall for a human, his build strong but not exaggerated. His uniform was simple, dark blue with the insignia of the United Earth Fleet on the shoulder. His steps were calm, confident, steady. His gaze met no one's in particular, yet it seemed to reach everyone at once. Commander Zethar stepped forward. Cadets, this is Captain Elias Ward of Earth. The human smiled politely. Thank you, Commander, he said, his voice deep and calm. He turned to the sea of alien faces watching him. I heard some of you have been learning about my kind. Scary stuff, huh? A few nervous laughs echoed, but most cadets stayed silent. The sound of his voice was strange, warm yet carrying something heavy behind it. Ward walked slowly across the stage, looking at the audience. You saw our wars. You saw the worst of what we've done. That's fair. We've done terrible things. We've burned our own world more than once, but we've also rebuilt it every single time. He paused, then added softly, maybe that's what makes us human. Lyric couldn't look away. There was something about the man, a stillness that wasn't arrogance, a strength that didn't need to shout. He had seen hundreds of soldiers in training, all fierce and proud, but none like this. One of the cadets raised a trembling hand. Captain Ward, she said, why do your people fight like that? Even when you know you will lose? Ward looked at her and smiled gently. Because sometimes losing isn't the worst thing that can happen. Failing to protect what you love, and that's worse. A quiet murmur spread through the hall. The cadets exchanged looks. They had never heard anyone speak about war like that. Another cadet, trying to sound brave, said, but your wars destroyed billions. You nearly ended your species. Ward nodded. Yes, and that's exactly why we learned. Every scar taught us something. Every mistake made us more careful. Every loss made us stronger. He looked at them with a strange sadness. You think our strength is violence. It isn't. Our strength is that we never stay broken. Commander Zethar watched silently, a faint smirk on his face. The man was doing more with words than any weapon could. Ward gestured toward the hollow screen behind him. Play Archive 12, he said. The screen came to life. It showed humans again, but this time not in war. Rescue missions. Human ships descending onto ruined alien worlds, evacuating survivors. Soldiers carrying wounded aliens to safety. Giving food. Giving blood. The cadets leaned forward, stunned. A voiceover played in the background, a woman's voice calm and clear. In every war, there are two sides, but in mercy there is only one. When the video ended, the hall was completely silent. The cadets had seen humans as destroyer, now they saw them as saviors. Lyric felt something inside him change. He whispered, they fight to protect, not just themselves. Captain Ward stepped forward again. We're not perfect, he said. We make mistakes. We've caused pain. But we also help when no one else will. That's what it means to be human. A young alien near the back stood up, his voice shaking. You scare us, he admitted. Even now, standing here. Ward smiled faintly. Good, he said softly. Fear reminds you that we're all capable of the same darkness. But understanding, that's what keeps us from repeating it. The cadet nodded slowly, sitting down again. Commander Zethar finally spoke. Captain Ward, you've shown them more than I ever could. Ward turned toward him and nodded respectfully. Understanding starts with honesty, Commander. We can't pretend to be something we're not. Zethar's eyes narrowed slightly. And what are you? Ward looked out at the cadets, his expression calm. We're survivors. That's all we've ever been. He stepped down from the stage. As he walked past, many cadets instinctively moved aside, giving him room. Not because of fear, but because of something else. Respect. When he reached the exit, he paused and looked back. You all want to be soldiers, he said. Then remember this, and strength isn't about power. It's about purpose. Find something worth fighting for and you'll never fall. Then he left. The doors closed behind him with a quiet hiss. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Lyrek exhaled softly and whispered. He didn't need to show war this time. He brought it with him. Commander Zethar turned to the cadets. Class dismissed. His voice was low but steady. The crowd dispersed slowly. Some walked away in silence. Some stayed seated, lost in thought. Others stood at the windows staring at the stars, wondering if they would ever understand what they had just witnessed. That night, Lyrek couldn't sleep again. But this time it wasn't fear that kept him awake. It was inspiration. He thought of Captain Ward's words. We're survivors. He looked out at the glowing stars beyond Vega Prime and whispered, maybe surviving is the greatest victory of all. Far across the galaxy, the human ship left Vega Prime's orbit, vanishing into the dark. Inside, Captain Ward sat quietly, watching the stars streak by. He smiled to himself and said softly, one day they'll understand. And somewhere in the academy below, a young alien cadet did. Days passed after Captain Ward's visit, but his presence still lingered in the air like a ghost. The Galactic Cadet Academy, once filled with pride and arrogance, now moved with quiet thoughtfulness. The cadets no longer bragged about their combat skills or the strength of their worlds. Instead, they whispered about the human, the man who had stood before them unarmed and still made them feel small. Lyrek walked down the hall, his mind restless. He replayed Ward's words again and again. Strength isn't about power, it's about purpose. Those words had struck deeper than any lesson or simulation. He wanted to understand them. But understanding humanity was like trying to hold light. The harder you tried, the more it slipped away. In the combat training room, cadets practiced drills under Commander Zethar's watchful eyes. The clang of metal and the hum of energy blades filled the air. Lyrek sparred against Jaro, his red-scaled friend, but his focus was distant. Come on, Lyrek, Jaro shouted, swinging his blade. You're too slow. Lyrek blocked half-heartedly, lost in thought. Jaro, do you think humans fight because they enjoy it? Jaro hesitated, surprised. Enjoy it? No, they fight because it's what they do best. It's who they are. Lyrek shook his head. No, that's not it. Ward said they fight for what they love. That's different. Jaro lowered his weapon, frowning. Love doesn't win wars. Lyrek smiled faintly. Maybe that's why they win anyway. Before Jaro could answer, Commander Zethar's voice cut through the room. Enough sparring. The cadets froze instantly. Zethar stepped forward, his heavy armor gleaming under the lights. Form a circle. They obeyed. Zethar looked at each one of them, his expression serious. You've seen humans in battle. You've seen them destroy, survive, and protect. Now tell me, what did you learn? Silence. No one dared to speak. Finally, Lyrek raised his hand. I learned that they don't fight for dominance, he said quietly. They fight because they must. Because something inside them refuses to kneel. Zethar studied him, then nodded slightly. Good, and what else? A nervous cadet spoke up. They fight for others, even when they know they'll die. Zethar's eyes glimmered. Exactly. He walked slowly around the circle. You all believe war is about weapons and strategy. But humans proved something different. They taught the galaxy that victory comes from the heart. They are unpredictable, emotional, dangerous, and that is why they survive. He stopped, his voice lowering. Fear them if you must, but never underestimate them. The room was silent again. Each cadet absorbed his words, feeling the truth sink in. After training, Lyrek stayed behind. As the others left, he approached the commander. Sir, he said quietly, I still don't understand them completely. How can a species so violent also be so kind? Zethar turned slowly, his eyes softening. That's the secret, Cadet. Humanity isn't one thing. They are both creators and destroyers. They build cities and burn them. They love deeply and fight fiercely. It's their curse and their gift. He looked out the window toward the stars. You see, Lirek, most species fear pain and avoid it. But humans, he paused, humans use it. They grow from it, Lirek frowned. So their strength comes from suffering? Zethar nodded. Exactly. Pain forged them into what they are. Lirek stood quietly for a moment, then asked, Do you respect them? The commander smiled faintly, something rare for him. Respect? More than that. I envy them. That night, Lirek couldn't rest. He sat by his window, gazing at the twin suns fading beyond the horizon. His thoughts drifted to Earth, that distant blue planet full of contradictions. He opened his tablet again and read through the human archives. There were old poems, speeches, and songs, words that spoke of hope, freedom, sacrifice, and love. One quote caught his eye. We are not meant to be perfect. We are meant to be whole. He whispered the word softly. Whole. He understood then that humans didn't seek perfection. They embraced their flaws. Their pain gave them empathy. Their weakness made them strong. The next morning, during breakfast, the academy felt different. Conversations were quieter, but not fearful anymore. Thoughtful. Cadets talked about humans not as monsters, but as mysteries to be studied. Jarrow sat beside Lirek, smirking. You're obsessed, you know that? Lirek shrugged. Maybe. But I think we were meant to learn something from them. Jarrow laughed. Learn from humans? How to destroy ourselves? Lirek smiled. No. How to survive ourselves. Later that day, the Academy broadcasted a message from the Galactic Council. It was short, official, and carried a tone of unease. Following the evaluation of Earth's historical data, all joint military exercises with human forces will remain suspended. Further psychological studies are recommended before cross-species collaboration. When the announcement ended, Zethar addressed his class. You see? Even the Council fears what it cannot understand. But he looked around the room, we have seen the truth. Humanity isn't a threat to the galaxy. They are its mirror. Lirek felt those words burn into him. That evening, Zethar called Lirek to his office. The commander was standing beside the holo display showing Earth's image, a blue and white sphere glowing softly against the dark. You remind me of them, Zethar said suddenly. Lirek blinked. Surprised. Me? Yes, you question everything. You don't accept answers easily. That's good. Curiosity is the first step to courage. Lirek hesitated, then asked, Do you think we'll ever understand them fully? Zethar chuckled. No, and maybe we shouldn't. Some mysteries are meant to stay unsolved. It keeps us humble. Lirek nodded. As he turned to leave, Zethar said one last thing. Remember this, Cadet. The day the galaxy stops fearing humans will be the day it forgets why it should respect them. When Lirek stepped into the corridor, he felt lighter, not because his fear was gone, but because he finally understood it. Humans didn't fight because they loved war. They fought because they loved peace, enough to bleed for it. As night fell over the academy, the stars shimmered brighter than usual. Lirek stood by the window whispering to himself, They scare me, but they inspire me even more. Far away on Earth, a human child laughed beneath the sky, unaware that on another world, light years away, an alien cadet was learning what it truly meant to be human. The weeks that followed were quieter than anyone expected. The Galactic Cadet Academy felt like a different place now, not weaker, but wiser. The cadets who had once laughed loudly, who had spoken about glory and conquest, now carried a new kind of silence inside them. It was not fear anymore. It was understanding, and maybe something close to respect. Lirek stood on the balcony outside his quarters, watching the twin suns of Vega Prime rise. The golden light painted the silver walls of the academy in shades of fire. For the first time, he noticed how peaceful the silence of space could be. Yet beneath that peace, he could still feel the echoes of everything they had seen, the images of Earth's wars, Captain Ward's calm eyes, Commander Zethar's lessons. They had all carved something permanent into his mind. The door behind him hissed open, and Jarrow walked out. You're up early again, he said.
Still thinking about them?
Lirek smiled faintly. Always. Jarrow leaned on the railing beside him. You know, before all this, I used to think humans were just another violent species. But now, he hesitated. Now I think they're more alive than anyone else. Lyric nodded slowly. Maybe that's why they scare us. They remind us of what we could be if we ever stopped hiding from pain. A soft beep interrupted their thoughts. A message flashed on the comm screen inside their room. It was from Commander Zethar. All cadets report to the Grand Hall. The final debriefing is about to begin. The two friends exchanged a look and hurried through the corridors. Others were doing the same, walking quickly but silently. The hall, once filled with chatter, now felt like a temple. Commander Zethar stood on the platform, his presence commanding as always. Behind him, the massive hollow screen showed the emblem of the Galactic Council. Cadets, he began, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. Today, we conclude your study of the humans. What began as an observation has become a revelation. You have all seen what no simulation could ever teach, the truth of resilience. He paused, letting his words settle. The Council has reviewed our findings. They have concluded that humanity's methods of warfare, psychology, and survival are incompatible with most species. Their instincts cannot be replicated. Their endurance cannot be trained. They fight beyond logic, and that terrifies the Council. A murmur spread through the room. Zethar raised his hand for silence. The official recommendation is clear. Never engage humanity in open conflict. Never provoke Earth and never underestimate them. He turned toward the screen. The next line of the report appeared, a personal addition from Zethar himself. He read it aloud, or perhaps, never fight them at all. Instead, learn from them. The cadets looked at each other. No one dared to speak. Zethar's eyes swept over the crowd. I will not lie to you, he said. Humans are dangerous. But danger is not always evil. Sometimes it is a lesson, one the galaxy needed. He stepped down from the platform and walked toward the center of the hall. Tell me, cadets, what did you truly see when you watched their wars? Lyrek hesitated, then stood. His voice was steady but soft. I saw monsters at first. But then I saw people who refused to stop breathing, even when the universe tried to take their breath away. Zethar smiled faintly. And that, cadet, is the heart of humanity. He looked around the hall. They fight not to conquer, but to endure. They destroy, and yes. But from that destruction, they build something stronger. Their strength is born from suffering. Their peace is carved from pain. The lights dimmed as the holoscreen shifted again. Now it showed Earth, blue, white, and beautiful. Oceans shimmered, clouds drifted, and continents glowed beneath the sunlight. The cadets stared, some in awe, some in silence. This, Zethar said, is the same world that birthed the footage you saw. The same species that burned its own cities, now builds them higher than before. The same race that fought endless wars now protects worlds that once feared them. That is humanity. He turned back toward the audience. If you ever face them, remember, they do not win because they are stronger. They win because they refuse to lose. When the session ended, the cadets were dismissed, but no one moved for a long time. They sat staring at the still image of Earth glowing on the screen. Later, Lyric walked out to the courtyard. The stars stretched endlessly above, quiet and cold. Commander Zethar was already there, standing near the edge, watching the void. You wrote that report, didn't you? Lyric asked softly. Zethar nodded without turning. I did, Lyric stepped beside him. Do you think the Council will listen? Zethar chuckled. The Council listens only when fear speaks loudly enough. And right now, humanity's shadow speaks louder than ever. They stood in silence for a while. Then Zethar said quietly, You've changed, Lyric. I think we all did, Lyric replied, but I don't think it's a bad thing. Zethar's gaze lingered on the stars. No, it isn't. Down in the barracks, some cadets packed their things to leave. Others sat by the windows watching the endless night. The academy felt smaller now, as if their entire galaxy had grown, and they had only just realized how vast it truly was. Before heading to his quarters, Lyric sent a message to Captain Elias Ward. It was simple. You've changed us. Thank you. He didn't expect a reply, but a few hours later one came. The message blinked on his screen. The galaxy changes everyone, Lyric. The real question is, what will you do with it? Lyric read the message twice, then smiled. He didn't know the answer yet, but he felt it forming inside him. That night he stood again by the window, watching the twin suns fade behind Vega Prime's horizon. The Academy's lights flickered softly across the metal halls. Somewhere, faintly, he could hear other cadets talking. Not about war or strength, but about courage, compassion, and the strange beauty of being alive. He whispered to himself, "They scare me. But maybe that's why I want to be like them." Far away on the small blue world called Earth, Captain Ward looked out his ship's window at the same stars. He smiled as the transmission ended. "Maybe," he said quietly. "The galaxy's finally learning." The stars shimmered, ancient and endless, watching silently as understanding replaced fear. One heartbeat, one story, one lesson at a time, and thus, the final message of humanity was clear across the stars. Strength is not in power. It is in the will to rise again.